Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alpheus Marks, the Community Advocate. And I would like to welcome you to Truth to Power for an Urban Agenda. Today's guest, good friend of mine, does a lot of work within the community. I'm gonna let her tell about herself. Her name is Chantel Jackson. Let's go.
My brother.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm thankful for you coming. Trust me.
No.
Give the people a little bit about yourself, because we on Facebook, so people see that. But let's go behind the scenes of what all you do.
So I am a licensed social worker who ran for public office, the New York State Assembly, 79th District, this June 23rd, and I won. So right now I am the Democratic nominee for the 79th Assembly District in the South Bronx. And come November 3rd, I will be the Assembly elect.
Oh, without
That's
question.
The game plan.
No, without question. I believe straight up and down, like, you're going to win this.
Okay.
Make no mistakes about it.
Make sure you tell God that, because...
No, listen, it's written.
Okay.
You came too far, one, and the work that you do justifies why you should be.
I do work hard, right?
Yeah, listen, every time I get a phone call to come out, you're working.
Nah, for real.
You know, so as an advocate within the community that does for the community, that's what's needed. That's real leadership.
Yeah.
You know, as an elected official, how do you see yourself actually helping the community?
So I ran on wellness, housing, and education, right? I called my message WIN, wellness, housing, education now. And as a social worker, the first thing that I worry about is people's mental, physical, and spiritual health. So that's why the wellness piece was important. And during this pandemic, like I had to campaign during the pandemic, my main responsibility was making sure that people had the necessities.
Correct.
So I provided food. I mean, when I tell you I served food every day since March 17th.
I know.
I served food every day since March 17th.
I know.
I made sure that people had PPE, gloves, masks, hand sanitizer, all those things. And I still was working. So I'm a licensed social worker in a high school. So my high school students still receive counseling from me. And it was a tough time because their parents were dying, their relatives were dying. And this is the most grief counseling I've ever had to do. But I did it while running a campaign, while making sure I was present in the community, because this is what's needed, right? When times get tough, you gotta call on the people that's willing to do the work, and I'm here to do the work.
That's a fact. And I'm surprised you haven't become overwhelmed.
Oh no, I get overwhelmed. So like I took the month of August off.
Oh.
Well, maybe not the month. I took maybe like a week off, and in that week people still called me to do stuff. But mental health is really important to me, so it's important that I do step away when it gets too rough.
I need to team up with you because I don't know how to stop.
You have to.
Like I'm constantly, like always with something. Mm-hmm. It's hard.
But you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
I try.
No, there's nothing there.
I try. I try.
So you are doing the best for people when you're at 100%. So you gotta do what it takes to get to 100% so you can pour into everybody else.
I'm gonna take that advice right there.
It's real.
Now, as an assembly woman, right? A lot of people don't understand that narrative or that job description. Can you inform the people what it is that assembly does?
Yeah. So the assembly person is part of a two-part body, right? You have the state assembly and then you have the state senators. So kind of like with Congress, in Congress you have the senators and you have the House of Representatives. So we're kind of like the House of Representatives. So there's 150 of us that make up the assembly. I will be one of them. And my job is to create law, to pass law, to vote on law that makes sense for my district. Now, I represent the entire New York State, but my focus is on the 79th Assembly District, which is the South Bronx, right?
Yes.
And also to vote on the budget. So those are the main things that I'm going to be doing: legislation and working on the budget.
See that a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, simple.
But when you look at people in general, right? They don't understand how their votes actually count, and the people that they vote for, their responsibilities and obligations to the community.
Right.
That's some of the biggest problems that I've seen, where people, they focus on the 4-year election.
Yes.
opposed to the actual election where some of the communities are not really benefiting from a lot of these elected
Right.
officials. I want, since I met you, I see the work you've done, and I've always said this, whoever's doing the work for the community is gonna be the one that wins.
Right.
I've
Yeah.
always said that. And it's shown
Yeah.
because you beat out people that in your district still believe that they're still in office.
Yeah. That's true.
That's crazy.
I mean, yeah. So the truth is, I did the work, right? As long as you do the work, the people will make sure that you're where you're supposed to be. And I didn't focus on other people's race, so I didn't even realize that people didn't think I was going to win, because I knew I was going to win just by continuously doing what God told me to do.
Yeah.
You get up, you serve, you go back to sleep, you come back and you do it again, right? And as long as I do that, stay focused on what I'm doing and what I'm taking care of, then nothing else mattered.
And I say this here because I remember one time you asked me, you said, if I had a choice to vote between you and Dion,
My good friend Dion Powell.
I said, well, I didn't want to hurt his feelings. Let me say that. But what I did know is that when it came down to the work, is who's going to do the work.
Yeah.
Who has the actual plan for their district and their constituents to benefit from.
Right.
And you've literally displayed all that.
Yeah.
That's what I love most. That's one of the reasons why I called you.
I appreciate
Right?
that.
That's one of the reasons why, like, you text me and you ask me, I'm there. A lot of guys don't get that from me.
Well, I
No.
appreciate that. Keep showing up.
No, I listen, anybody that's for the community, I'm always gonna be there.
Right.
Make no mistakes about it, I'm always gonna be there for. One of the things you said was education.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
let me say this here. I've been working with the chancellor and his people, right, to desegregate the schools.
I've heard you talk about that before.
That's one of the biggest issues that I have that literally puts us on equal terms with whites, the end of the racism, the systemic racism within the education components. How do you see, or would you push a legislation that would include ending the segregated practices?
So the question is segregation harmful to Black kids, right? And I want to, and you'll probably say yes because you want to desegregate schools, right? But I want us to think about when, during segregation in this country, there were pockets of Black communities that were thriving.
Correct.
Would you agree?
I would agree with that.
So the issue isn't necessarily that I have an all mostly Black school, you have an all mostly white school. That's not the issue. The issue is that the resources are not allocated equitably.
Correct.
So that's my concern. So when we use words and language, because words mean a lot, I don't really care about desegregating schools. I care about resources being given out equitably. So will I work to make sure that schools that are in impoverished neighborhoods, districts that don't have much, will I make sure that they get their equitable just? 100%. And how do you do that? You need to know, well, where's the money going? How's it flowing? Because we have $26 billion designated from the state into education. So why is it that the kids in the Bronx couldn't get iPads and laptops and hotspots for remote learning, but kids in District 3, District 2, were able to get access to those things so much quicker?
You want me to give you a synopsis?
Well, we know why, but the fight will be not necessarily about desegregation, because I don't care. I don't think that integration is absolutely necessary. What I think is that schools in Black and brown communities tend to have lower resources, right? And I want them to get the resources and funding.
Now, let me touch on what you said. When you speak about integration and segregation, right? They're one entity. One says you're separate from us, but equal amongst yourselves. The other one says we accept you, right? But you're not equal to us. That's the integration part. we accept you, but you're not going to get the same benefits that we get. Inclusion has always been the outward. Let me say that, because no one pushed for inclusion. When you speak, and you said the funds is not allocated correctly.
And not equitably, because equitable is my key word.
Evenly, same, I looked at the budget, right? And I had some talks with some lawmakers on this here. New York City has $34 billion in money for the budget. 17 of that is for operational, and the other 17 is for capital budgets, repairs, new buildings, and everything. When you look at the budget, right, and you look at the number of teachers that's in the unions, when you divide $17 billion by the 190,000 teachers union, that tends to show a unrealistic salary, because when you divide that, it says that everybody makes $89,000 a year in change, and we know that's not true. We know that's not true.
Social workers do okay, but
look, we know, like, they consider communities within, like, urban communities as high-risk communities. We get all the teachers that's not qualified, so they say.
Okay.
They've convinced us that everything is based on taxes. If you pay property taxes, then your school gets the money, and that's a myth. How should we start looking at our children's education to where they get the right resources, they get the funding, right? And the districts that was failing, right? There's no longer issue where we're going to make up the grades as we go along. How can we really push that?
So I'm not Jesus, but what I will say is, like, what I'm willing to do and what I want to focus on. And we need to look at education as a holistic practice. When I say holistic practice, I'm talking about the child exists, but the family and the community is just as important as the child. And so when we educate one child, we need to be also looking to educate and provide resources for parents and community at the same exact time. And so education needs to look like more than just, I need to make sure that you pass your test, that you can go to the next grade. We need to be providing services to the whole family. And when I'm talking about services, if a kid is hungry, if a kid is cold at night, they're not going to be able to function when they get to school the next day. They may be acting out. And why? Because home is not pleasant to be. And so when you start looking at a child and in the environment, because that's what they teach you in social work, when you look at the person in the environment, you get to see why in which they act the way they do. If a child, like I work in Long Island City, I have kids that come from Queensbridge. Now, if you come from Queensbridge, you know some days you got to fight your way to get out of there to come to this very beautiful school that I work at.
Yeah.
When you come into the building, you wonder why this kid is all hyped up and why they have this aggressive tone, is because of the environment. And if you don't understand the environment, if you're not willing to work with the environment, then you're not going to reach the child. So I think with education, it's important for us to start looking at not just the child, but the community in which they come from. And we need to have wraparound services for everyone and everything.
No, what you're saying is correct. I've literally had a situation where there's a school back on Bryan Avenue in the Hunts Point section, junior high school, where one of the teachers was like, these kids is animals. White teacher said this.
Right.
And I was like.
And that's a racial slur.
Yeah. I looked at it and I had to, like, fight to hold my tongue with it. But I had to explain to her, one, you haven't invested enough time to understand their social conditions. A lot of these kids come from an environment where they're forced to be older than what they are.
Correct.
So when they're forced to be older than what they are, when they get around kids, they act like kids. I had one student, right? And you could tell he ran everybody, small as hell. But he ran all the big guys, all right? And when I got to speak with him, I found out him and his sister, they come to school together, but his mother gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning to leave out for work so she can be there by 6:37. The father gets up at 6 in the morning so he can be to work. And it's just them two.
Right.
They got to cook,
Right.
they got to clean,
Right.
the laundry and everything else before they go to school. And then when they come from school, right, their parents don't get home until 6, 7 o'clock. So they're forced to be older than what they are, right, due to the social conditions.
Right.
And these teachers that come from a different area, they don't even understand it.
No.
They can't relate to that. They can't even fathom the thought that, yo,
Like this child is raising themselves
Yeah.
without like parental, oversight or whatever.
and
And
when
they're pretty mature, actually.
yeah, and when me and the teacher spoke, I don't know if it got to her where she could understand what I was saying, but she at that moment her tone changed. So I was like, wow, like these are the people that we have literally
Right. Teaching
our
our
children.
kids. And that's why when you talked about desegregation, that's what I thought about, automatically. I thought about our oppressors should not be teaching our kids.
yeah,
And I say that very plain, very clear. I'm not taking it back. Our oppressors should not be teaching our kids. And so if it means that we need to have a black school with black administration and black kids and then that's what it has to be. Because I don't think that it's appropriate for someone who doesn't understand my child to be teaching my child.
yeah. Because the curriculum now, and you're going to see it once you get in Albany. Albany has developed what the New York City public education was like under Farina and everybody else. They've adopted a social promotion mentality with the kids, and the numbers says this here: for every 100 children that graduate out of New York City public school, black child, Spanish child, they don't have the educational requirements for a community college level education. And for every 100 kids that enroll into a community college, a 2-year school, only 36% continue to get at least 20 credits.
Yeah.
Like,
The retention rate is staggering.
it's dismal.
Yeah.
And they got to take remedial classes.
And they waste their financial aid on those remedial classes.
And they go back to the streets.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough. I know for me, education was my way out because, like, I'm from Harlem, right? I'm from Harlem. I lived in the Bronx 13 years, but I grew up. I'm from the 80s, right? I even though you have to be like born 70s to say you're from the 80s, I was born 83. So I do remember, the vacant lots, and my park was flooded with crack vials and burnt down buildings. Like, that's where I came from. That's what I saw. And so education was my way out, because there was a time in which I could have, subjected myself to a life of crime and done what I saw my friends and family, do.
Yeah.
And I decided, like, that's not for me, especially because I became a mom at 18. So I was just like, I have to provide for myself and my kid. So at this point, how can I get out the hood? Well, I'm going to go to school, because if I go to school, then maybe I can get a job. I can take care of my family. And some people won't see it that way. Some people need to eat today. See, I was fortunate enough to have like people in my life who can help provide a meal for me. But I understand why some people hit the streets. They hit the streets because they need to eat today.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, my mom may not come home today and make sure that we have food. There ain't no McDonald's for me, so I need to go out there and get it. I get that.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it.
Yeah. No, I mean, those are realities. And,
Right.
and it's hard because...
Now imagine dealing with that, and then they talking about, do this math problem, do this. I don't want to do no math problem.
At all. And that's the reality. And I'm glad that we have individuals such as yourself. I'm not going to say people, I'm saying individuals such as yourself who, from experience, lived it, fought hard to see that no longer exists
Yeah.
to the point where you became a part of legislation.
Yeah. I speak for the hood,
Yeah.
right? I spent a lot of my time going in and out of prisons visiting people. Like my ex-husband went to jail for 4 years when I was 7 months pregnant. So when I tell you that I've seen, the dark sides of what happens when you don't choose education, I've seen it. It wasn't me firsthand, but I had to live it through my ex-husband. I had to live it through brothers. I had to live it through all the men in my life. And so I know that when I say education, I'm not talking about just school. I'm talking about just education, period. Because we've been kept out of education that I care about, the RBCs, which is real estate, business, credit, and stocks. When we talk about that, when I tell you we've been kept out of that education, I mean it. And so when I'm talking about it, I mean, yes, school education is cool, get the academics, all of that, but real estate, business, credit, and stocks is how in which you get out of poverty.
Exactly.
How in which you create generational wealth, which is what I care about. And so with my district being one of the poorest congressional districts, and I'm tired of having to say that, with my district being one of the poorest congressional districts, that is my focus. And so I may meet a child or a kid who decides that they don't care about math or they don't care about science and they don't want to do school. But let me tell you something, you don't have to know about math and science necessarily to run a business. What you need to know is the business. You need to know the ins and outs of the business, and you need to realize that either you rent or you own. But some way, somehow, somebody's getting paid for that real estate. So be a part of that process. Know how credit works, know how stocks work, because that's how we all raise each other up out of the hood, the ghetto, poverty, and all those things.
Well, I like you. I'm falling in love with you even more.
Listen.
No, I'm for real, because like literally,
No, it's real.
Off camera we spoke, like I find out so much.
Yeah.
And literally this is how it's supposed to be.
Right.
Leadership leads by example.
Right.
Not only gives the people what it is the tools they need, but shows them.
Yeah.
So they can be independent, opposed to dependent.
We're supposed to give information. Like, we're not supposed to hoard it.
Right.
Like my parents didn't teach me about any of those things I was just talking about. I learned it all through someone else. Someone poured into me. And so I was just like, oh, all right, that's how that works? Cool. Well, let me show my daughter how to do this. Let me show other people how to do this. And a lot of it I took the initiative for, because I don't like being broke. I don't like being poor. And so I had to take the initiative. Our kids come up in a time of YouTube where you can like figure out everything just by opening your phone and taking a look. And so we need to encourage them to use that for education. Snapchat, cool. TikTok is cool. But what are you learning? How are you growing? Like, what kind of income are you creating from this content that you're watching?
You know what? Let me tell you what I heard. Somebody told me, he said, I don't want to see that YouTube stuff because that's fake.
Nah.
Look,
I go to YouTube University for everything.
Look, I told myself, I said, you know what they used to tell us? They used to tell us if you want to hire something from a black, you put it in the book.
Put it in the book.
Now, what they do now is putting it online for you to see.
And you don't even want to see it.
You don't want to see it. Like, you're more visual. You can literally take what's on on
YouTube.
Instagram, on YouTube, right? And do your due diligence and find if the information is actually true.
Yeah, because when I was younger, you had to go to the encyclopedia, you had to go to the library, you had to go do the Dewey Decimal System. I know, because I used to work in the library.
You know what I'm saying?
So you have to do all of that just to get information, and now it's at the palm of your hand. It's here for you. So
nobody's
just
taking
utilize
advantage
it.
of that.
Well, people are.
No.
It's just that we have to encourage people to take advantage of it more often.
Yeah.
So like with my circle, I have a circle of girlfriends, and I always encourage them to like work on their business, work on their goals. And I know that I come across as like, nagging at times, but I just want to see us all win.
Of course.
That's it. I just want to see us win.
Let me tell you, if you don't have any haters, that means you ain't doing nothing.
Yeah. Well,
No, that's a fact. If you ain't got nobody that don't like you, because one, if you're a good person, a person got to find a reason to hate you.
right.
You get what I'm saying? So if you're giving out information, you're being a leader, and somebody say, I don't like it, you ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Well, I don't focus on what people don't care, like, or do about me. That's not my business. My business is to wake up, know my purpose, and just execute.
And that's what I love. That's what I love.
That's my job.
Look, that's what I love. And
I don't have energy for any of that other stuff.
look, I've always felt your energy since we
It's
met.
real.
I love it. And from Harlem.
Right, Harlem.
Definitely. You know what I'm saying? But
I rep in the Bronx.
Yeah.
I got
No.
I've been here for 13
Yeah.
years. And,
No,
you know,
we ain't going.
I take care of my people.
But the foundation came from because
from the streets of
we know
Harlem.
we know in the Bronx there's a lot of unnecessaries that we not even going to deal with. But what we're going to talk about is when you win.
Yeah.
I want to be there at the party.
If we can have a party,
We gonna have a party.
because with COVID,
We gonna have a party.
we don't know what's happening. I would love to celebrate with my people, the most responsible way possible. Even if we do it later on
Yeah.
next year.
No, we
definitely
gonna celebrate this because one, like I said, the elective is someone who's really about the people.
Yeah.
The elective is one who's shown the people and the community. Now that look what I've done, but now you can do it.
Right.
That's what's always been missing. And I feel with your rise to this assembly, and as I say this,
Yeah.
it encourages others
Absolutely.
to do the same thing.
Absolutely.
And the platform itself and the way it's delivered shows that we can literally do what's necessary for our community.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of us actually getting away from the egos. You know what I mean? Because we get away from the egos, we get away from the photoshops and the photo ops and all that, we can see the difference that we make within the communities.
Yeah. I read something that said ego is etching God out. And so when you put the ego to the side and you focus on like what you're supposed to do and your purpose, we all can collectively take care of each other. And I think that's what's most important. And also focus on who's with you. Don't spend time on who's not with you. Even if it's the president, you're looking for the president to be with you, they ain't with you, he ain't with you. Go find your group. And I have to teach that to my mom because my mom always focuses on like, oh, this person said this and this person. I said, go find your crew.
Yeah.
Whoever your crew is, just run straight with them. That's it.
You know what's crazy about this? Because I had the same conversation this morning with a friend of mine. A friend of mine just came home from doing a lot of time. He says, I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, when I was incarcerated, I read more.
Yeah.
I was around brothers that kept me sharp. He said, I don't see that here in the streets. I said, well, this is what you gotta remember. One, steel sharpens steel.
Yeah.
So
Iron
the
sharpens
only
iron.
thing that separates prison from out in the free world is prison is a concentrated environment where you get to see things more than you would out here because
Well, you get
it's
to
so
tune
open.
in more.
No, you
get to tune in,
no.
too.
What I'm saying to you is this here. You literally get to see, damn, this person remind me of somebody from the streets. I ain't
And you got the time
I ain't
to
gonna mess
figure
with
it out.
Yeah, but you also have the time to figure it out here when you surround yourself around like-minded people.
Yes.
And that's the key. You have to surround yourself around people that want to see you do good, that's about progression, right? That's going to make sure that when you fall, come on. Because, everybody that knows, they know me. I'm a street guy when it's all said and done. I have to go back to the community that I'm from so that I get a reality check. And when I come back to the community, I come back with looking at what's going on, being tired of seeing what's going on, to the point where I say, oh, I'm not coming back to this. I gotta continue to fight because when they see me fight, they'll get on board.
Yeah.
So it's ironic that the same conversation comes back
I'm
up.
with you. And
You know?
I also think about like when people talk about gentrification in our communities, and I always say like it's our job to revitalize our communities so that other people don't come in, want to come in, or could come in and do that for us. So it's important for us not just to find our like-minded people, but to also stay where we are, build where we are, so that we don't need a vacation from where we are. We need to create that vacation where we are right now.
And that's why I love that business model that you have, the real estate.
Yeah, no, real
investment.
estate, business,
That's
credit,
important.
and stocks.
That's important.
Can you imagine if we started having those conversations with our young folks about those topics like other communities do?
Yeah.
Like how far we would be in life?
Yeah.
And if those things were actually taught in school, financial literacy was actually a real thing in school. Like we're supposed to teach it, and there may be like a subject that you may get it part of a semester, but it is not taught the way it needs to be taught. And if our kids had that and they can run with that, man, listen, I tell my daughter and every other young person, you can profit off of everything you love. And you should only be working, not only, but you should work doing the things that you love doing because it'll never feel like work.
I just told my grandnephew that.
It's true.
My grandnephew said, he
They'll
said,
pay you for anything in this world.
yeah, I just told my grandnephew that. He said, I said, what you want to do when you get older? So I just want to be a YouTuber.
And
I
you
said,
can do that.
I said, all right, you want to do a YouTuber. What is it you want to do? Because you got to get money with that. He's like, oh, well, you know, I'm going to figure it out. I said, well, you better start figuring it out now because,
Yeah.
like, literally, once you start getting into your teens, that might not be, you know, something that you keep in mind.
But it's possible. Like, there are kids who get paid right now to unbox.
Yeah.
Unboxing is a thing. Or play with toys, right? And they're paid just to do those things. And so it's like, well, why aren't our kids doing that? You spend so much time on these things. How are you figuring out how to make this profitable for you?
Listen, I wish when I was a kid they had YouTube. I'd be a billionaire.
But they got YouTube now.
Yeah.
And you can still have that opportunity. That's the other part, is that, like, I don't want ever for anyone to think that I'm preaching to them, right? I'm in this process too. I get lazy too, right? I'm an author and my book is doing okay. And so I don't push, like, I could be out doing city tours, but I'm not doing that, right? So I don't want to act like there aren't things that I should be doing as well, because it does exist.
No, you do know that.
It does exist.
You do know that after this here interview, like, we really gonna lock in because I'm learning so much sitting down with you. Before it was just social.
Right.
Now, like, literally,
Or we see each other at a rally or
yeah,
something.
I'm literally like, yo, she's the real deal.
I hope so.
No, literally, like,
Appreciate
you
that.
are what the community needs. You are what the community needs because you set the bar for so many young women that come from the same background that may feel that the system, I can rely on the system, I can rely on this. No.
But you should, though. No. You should rely on the system. Because every rich person, every wealthy person relied on the system to their advantage.
No. I'm not saying.
Take that system and
No.
I use the system.
No. When I say rely, I mean literally like where it just becomes a everyday thing.
Right. So you
Use
supposed
it
to
as
take
a
that.
stepstone?
No, you supposed, right. Take it, step right on it. 'Cause
And-
part of my story is that I was on food stamps. I had Medicaid. I lived in a HUD apartment. I now live in a Mitchellama. I used financial aid to get through school. Like, I've been on the system since birth.
No. Listen what I'm saying.
And so I use every last thing the system got.
No.
I'm
not saying not use the system. I mean, some become complacent
Right.
on the system.
Right.
Use it as
Right. You're supposed to
use it as a stepping stone. Because look at what you did.
Yeah.
You used it, but all the while you went back to school.
Yeah, of course.
Single mother, did what you had to do. Now, a leader.
I took that PEBT card they gave out. They gave out the food stamps to the parents in public schools. Man, listen, I took that and utilized it.
Yeah.
I used it to buy Franks for someone who was having a back to school event, but still, you know, you use the system because wealthy people use the system. They get those tax breaks. You know, they find the loopholes in paying taxes. They use the system. And so I want people to know how to use it to their advantage.
That's what I'm getting at.
Right? Use it to your advantage.
That's what I'm getting at.
And if you get food stamps and you need to, like, make a buck, figure out how to make a buck.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean by that. Use it as your hustle. But don't use it as a dependency.
Right.
Let me clarify that.
Yeah, and because the thing is, I want people to be mindful of how we talk about social services. When it comes to welfare, we only consider food stamps, Medicaid, the stuff that poor people get. But we don't acknowledge the fact that wealthy people get tax write-offs. And that's welfare too.
Oh, do they?
That's welfare. You know, like,
You been to Williamsbridge?
Huh?
You been to Williamsburg out there in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time out there. One of my favorite restaurants is out there. But my point is that, like, we have to watch in which we speak about social services. Not saying you spoke about, I'm just saying in general. We need to be mindful of how we speak about social services that poor people get as opposed to what rich people get. Because we all are using the federal government for something or another. And so it's only until it's a black woman who doesn't have much income seen as, oh, she's mooching off the system. Listen, everybody's mooching off the system. Your president is mooching off the system.
Yeah.
Right? And so I just want us to be mindful of how we speak about those things. And yes, we shouldn't be complacent. We should want more for ourselves. But if that's all you want for yourself, that's cool. I'm gonna find the people that want more for themselves. I'm gonna run with those people.
Yeah, that's what it is. I thank you for coming.
I thank you for having me. This was a good conversation. We always have good conversations.
We always have. But this is the first time we doing it on camera for the people like to literally like look at. And it's powerful.
It's powerful.
I love it. And I always, I watch you on Facebook when I get on there, I can't wait for you to win.
I appreciate that.
Because literally when I tell you, you are the example of what leadership is.
Thank you.
Please, if you need me, I'm here.
I appreciate you, brother.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm serious. So, as the people got a glance of the future assemblywoman and a leader here within the Bronx, I hope that y'all take the time out when it's come time to November and remember Chantel Jackson.
That's right.
Because she's been in it for the people. And if she wasn't, she wouldn't be here on Truth to Power for the Urban Agenda. She has our agenda at heart, and she's going to make the necessary changes that's needed. And I thank her for coming.